Well, hello, welcome back. This is A Course in Miracles 365, Awakening to Love. I'm Reverend Tomas Garza, and we've got a very, very interesting question here today from the Manual for Teachers. Well, I would say this, and I would say this because I have multiple times on this video series. They're all interesting. The most interesting question, the one we're talking about right now. Why is that? You got it. There is only right now. So, of course, it's the most interesting and the most perplexing and the most fun. So, let's have at it. The eighth question here that Jesus presents and answers in the Manual for Teachers, which, by the way, is a spiritual themed, Course in Miracles themed FAQ section. It is exactly that. How can perception of order of difficulties be avoided? That's question 8. How can the perception of order of difficulties be avoided? So let's talk for a moment about what is meant in A Course in Miracles in this entire thought system by order of difficulties. You may recall, if you've been through the text of this course, that very, very early on, as in the first couple of pages, Jesus lets us know there is no order of difficulty in miracles. One miracle is just like any other. So, literally, moving a mountain with your thought process is just the same as forgiving somebody. It's just as miraculous as you forgiving yourself for spilling coffee on your pant leg. It's exactly the same thing. A miracle being defined throughout this course as any shift, any shift from fear to love, from the thought system of the ego to the thought system of the Holy Spirit, which Jesus teaches us right here in this course. Any shift, no matter how small it may appear at the time. So, what happens is we're engaged in the world in mass categorization, aren't we? We break down and classify and subclassify and see things as different degrees of brilliance, different degrees of intelligence, right? Different degrees of height, weight, strength. We measure everything according to measuring systems that we literally made up. I mean, what's a meter? Someone made it up. Yeah. What does 6'3" actually mean? I mean, that's what people say my height is. So what is that exactly? But a series of classifications that we all drew up. It is how we divide and subdivide everything in the world. And unfortunately, in doing this, we split everything, our experience, we split and divide it so much that inevitably we begin to identify with certain divisions. And then we make that a thing. We make it real to ourselves and concretize it, meaning we make it real to us, we define our personal territory, and then we defend it. We attack. You don't have to physically attack. You don't have to declare war on your neighbor and launch all of your ballistic missiles at them in order to attack. And this is something that we see here in the course. It's pervasive in the thought system of the ego. The ego is separation. It's simply, as we also see here in the course, a mistake. So this is what's meant by order of difficulties. There is no order of difficulty in miracles. There is no order of difficulty in healing, because as Jesus tells us right here, all sickness is an illusion. All sickness is an illusion. So why do we see it with the body's eyes? Why does the body feel it? Why? Why does it feel aches and pains? Why does it grow this thing that we call gray hair? Why does it age? And why does it cease to exist when finally it gives up, craps out, and then just lays there like a decomposing heap? Which is exactly what it is at that stage, isn't it? And you're not there. The reality, and one that we accept over time, most of us, is that we're not a body. This is something that we all know deep down. The reason that you continue to show up and pay attention to these videos, to this course, the reason you have a spiritual practice in the first place is because you are responding to some part of you. You can just call it that if you want to. Some part of you that just knows, that frickin' knows the truth. That there's more to it than just this. And the way that you continue to recycle your unconscious guilt, which is what we're all doing here, by the way, when we continue to identify with the ego and therefore define, defend personal territory and lash out and attack, just like that, unconsciously, as we continue to recycle that. And as we do, we just appear to become more and more confused. And there is, nevertheless, a part of us that thinks this is not working for me, that's willing to take just a little step back and say, there's got to be a better way. There is a better way. So how do we avoid seeing an order of difficulties? Well, what's going on here again, and this is important to actually go through and read these answers, is very important. These videos are no substitute for your own work, your own study, because ultimately this is all about your practical application of these ideas. So let's go through here in the video and I'll explain a few things as I typically do here. And it's up to you to practice them. Who else is going to do it? I'm not going to do it for you. Even if I wanted to, I couldn't. And I don't want to, so I won't. I can't. And neither will Jesus nor the Holy Spirit or your guide or guides interpose his or her own will on you, because that would deprive you of your learning experience and it would make all of the illusions real. Holy Spirit doesn't share our illusions. It sees them and does not acknowledge them. It doesn't recognize them. So I'll point to some specific language here that is really important. It's actually in paragraph 4 here. Again, how can perception of order of difficulties be avoided? Well, it's what we've seen. How we make errors, right? Errors in perception, seeing things incorrectly. How we mess up is in all of this order of difficulties business, this categorization and subcategorization. What is that but separating? It's separating men from women, right? One nation state from another nation state. Just like that. And on and on and on, ad infinitum, repeated infinitely here in the world until we all wake up. So that's how we see things incorrectly. And what's going on is the body's eyes appear to show us division, don't they? We look at people walking down the street and they all appear different. They're different genders, they're different height, different weight, they're wearing different clothes. But there appear to be so many differences. And that's what the body's eyes report to us. Now, what's going on is we don't see with the body's eyes. I just said something very important. The body's eyes report to us. It's the mind that truly sees. Close your eyes. Can you see something? Can you picture something? Yeah, it's the mind that truly sees. What we value is what we end up seeing. We end up seeing the thought system that we want to see. The body's eyes go out and look for the mind's preconceived values. It's as though there is a, well, fictional relationship between the mind and the body's eyes. The mind says, go seek for this. Body's eyes go seek for it and report it back. This is fundamental to understanding any spirituality. It really is. The mind is in control. We see with the mind, and what the mind values, and wants to see is what we see all the time. If the mind wants to see war, boom, there's war. The body's eyes go out and look for war. And these days, you don't have to look too far. It's all over the news. It's always all over the news, separation in any form. This is why in the workbook, it's such a central idea that Jesus wants us to focus on and practice wanting the peace of God. When we want the peace of God and only the peace of God, that is what our minds will value. Sends these little mirrors, right, reflection devices, out to look for what? The peace of God. What then do we see? Yeah. Powerful. We see the peace of God. Want only the peace of God. See only the peace of God. Do you want only the peace of God? If the answer is no, so be it. If the answer is yes, great. This is what we're being encouraged to want above all else, and only this. What we want to see, we inevitably see. If we want to see conflict, boom, we'll see it. If we want to see unity and harmony and peace, it's what we see. What we call sight in the world, using the body's eyes, is not real sight at all. So there's no order of difficulty at all in miracles. In other words, there's no order of difficulty at all in healing because, well, all sickness, right, all mental disturbance is in fact an illusion. One of the fundamental principles of A Course in Miracles is changing your mind. This, in fact, encompasses all of spiritual practice at its root, at its essence, what it is changing your mind. Changing your mind about what? Everything. Who you are, who other people are, what the world is and is not. Changing your mind. When you want only the peace of God, that is what you will see. It is that powerful. You are that powerful. And yes, absolutely, emphatically, 100% yes, it is that simple. This is a difficult thing for the ego to handle. It rejects it. You may find yourself thinking, okay, well, there's no way, absolutely no way that it can be as easy as this makes it seem. No, we didn't say easy, did we? It's simple. Easy, well, that's a value difference. It's a value judgment that we place on everything, isn't it? If you don't want only the peace of God, then it's not going to be easy to set the ego aside. I mean, it simply won't. It won't be. And that is what most of us experience here is on the spiritual path, there are moments where we appear to be really backsliding. What's going on there is not necessarily that you've taken 3 steps forward and 8 steps back, fallen down a hole. I mean, it might actually really, truly feel like it in the moment. But what's really going on is it's thoughts of separation, the ego, attempting to rule the show, coming up, and it can take the form of that little voice telling you you're wrong. Don't listen to this guy talking on the screen. No, it's not that way. Can't be that way. No, you're not ready for that. Really. It's that voice that continues to whisper at us, to us. Sometimes it sounds really persuasive, doesn't it? Sometimes sexy. Yeah. Sometimes really, really, well, sensible. But there's a part of you, a part of all of us that knows that it's not. And that if we give in to it and listen to it, it's only going to cause us suffering. Now, what happens when you really make the decision that you want the peace of God? The body's eyes are going to go forth and show you the peace of God. So what's going to happen is we're still going to see differences in the world. If there's a war going on, we're still going to see it. You're still going to see the apparently different people walking down the street. Some are going to be taller than others. One's what we call a man, the other's what we call a woman. They're wearing different colored shirts. They're these things that we call shoes look differently. And some of them appear larger than others. Some appear to be open-toed sandals. Others are what we call tennis shoes. Right? You'll continue to see differences. What's going to happen is the mind is not going to acknowledge them. Yeah, they'll show up, but what's going to happen is you won't believe the differences. That's not recognizing the difference. You see it and recognize it as the same. You see everyone walking down the street and recognize them as the same, as one, as you. Instead of millions of categories, there's one. This is one way of describing what I often say on these videos, that we have a choice in the present moment between 2 options, exactly and only 2 options. One, fear, the other, love. One, the ego, separation, to the thought system of the Holy Spirit, or God, love, oneness, true happiness, joy, limitlessness. We have that choice in the present moment. So as we choose love, we begin to let go of this voice that's telling us now it's safe to go back to our den of suffering because it feels familiar, and we can just feel comfortable for 3.5 seconds until we're miserable again. So the question that we all have to ask ourselves, how much longer? How much longer are you willing to put up with your own delusion? How much longer are you willing to put up with suffering? Because that voice that we keep talking about here that says there's got to be a better way, there is a better way. Oh, yeah, yeah. Oh, yeah. There is a better way. It's to want only the peace of God and mean that, really, truly mean that. If it means repeating the idea again and again and again, like a mantra, so be it. Whatever the practice of that looks like for you, that is the idea, that we want only that. Boom, these devices go out and seek that. All of these devices, all of our senses, go out and seek that. This is the, of course, same and foundational basis for all of these a myriad, and I do mean myriad practices of what people call manifestation. That is what you want to see, you end up seeing. So where they fall short of the peace of God is in not wanting the peace of God. Well, it's lovely to have a nice house, a nice car, and a hot, sexy bod, hot, sexy partner, and maybe a pool in the back or something, cool car. I don't know. Yeah, well, all of that is nice here in the world. It is not the peace of God, where we continue to spin in the cycle of suffering. If you're a Buddhist, samsara, keep the wheel rolling, where we continue to keep the wheel rolling as we focus on the apparently exterior objects. Remember, we see what the mind wants to see. If we want a hot, sexy lover, boom, what shows up in our experience? A hot, sexy lover. Does that make you permanently happy? Of course not. No matter how hot your weekend may be. And I hope it's scorching. It's not permanent happiness. And we continue to experience this. So rather than looking at the cause, the root cause of that unhappiness, which is the mind, we continue to exchange these external objects, different partner, different car, different house, new shirt, new pair of underwear, a new haircut, which for me doesn't mean a thing at all. It's just getting out the buzzers. But you see, my point here is you cannot solve any problem. You cannot find a solution to any quandary with the same mindset that created it in the first place. So the mind that continues to believe in the illusion of all of these differences and categories will go forth and seek new categories. I invite you, as Jesus invites all of us here in the Course, to Work on this idea and let it permeate your entire being. I want only the peace of God. If that is what you want, that is what you will see. Spiritual practice is not about a new Mercedes, as nice as they may be. It's about changing your mind from wanting to see illusion to wanting to see peace, from wanting to see and experience love. When I say see here, I'm talking about the mind, I'm talking about a totality of experience. These little devices are just mirrors, they're reflective mirrors. There's so much here in this particular lesson that is of such prominence and value that it can be difficult to grasp all at once, can't it? That's why repetition is needed on the path. That's why I say the same thing over and over again. It's why any teacher says the same thing over and over again. Eventually, if you look at enough of these videos, you hear the same thing dozens and dozens of times. Well, we need that. We're stubborn, aren't we? I mean, we're all adult learners here, myself included. So we need to hear things multiple times in order to fully grasp them, don't we? I mean, we really, truly do. So I invite you, in conclusion here, to want the peace of God. Quick answer, a long answer to the question: how can perception of order of difficulties be avoided? Set it aside. Decide you want the peace of God. And that's what you will find. Change your mind, and you will see things vastly differently. All right, guys. Thank you, as always, for joining me, and we'll see you soon.